All right, welcome back to the channel. My name is Coach Jordan Hardgrave. So today I'm going to be kind of shining a spotlight on what depersonalization feels like. I'm going to be using a video that I did on 9/25 that kind of is going viral. It's got almost 1 million views, like 80,000 hearts on TikTok. I don't really like posting too much on TikTok. I like YouTube a lot better for a lot of different reasons, but it is really cool that so many people are getting an awareness of what's going on. And we're going to be reading some of the comments as well, where people are describing depersonalization on this video that I think are so good. But let's go ahead and watch the video. I'll go ahead and give kind of some behind the scenes of the video that you might find interesting. And then let's go and read some descriptions so you can be educated about why depersonalization is happening, as well as what it feels like. Okay, so smash the like button if you're excited about this, and subscribe, join this family. Let's go and get this thing going. I do have some coffee this morning, but unfortunately it is not blueberry. It is some sort of apple pie because we're out of blueberry coffee. I'm very depressed about it. I don't want to talk about it, but I added blueberry coffee to my Walmart grocery pickup for later. Ugh. This is just not good, but at least coffee's coffee, which, by the way, you will be able to drink coffee again once you're recovered. There was a point during my recovery where one sip of coffee would send me skyrocketing into panic and severe depersonalization. Now I have 1 to 2 cups a day, and it's really awesome. So let's go and watch this video with this very large-nosed creature here. You ever seen Doug? Big nose. There's an episode where this kid is highlighting Doug's big nose. I can't help it, guys. I don't know what's going on. All right. What do you mean life feels unreal? I don't know. It just does. And then that was okay. So as you can see, it's more just blurry versus fake and dreamlike. And I know I literally almost didn't post the video. I'm so glad I did now, because almost 1 million people have been educated about depersonalization as far as kind of generally speaking what it feels like. But the blurry filter just doesn't really capture it. Just to be clear, derealization feels like you're living in a dream world. It feels like everything around you is fake and dreamlike. Some people use the analogy of it feels like a wall of glass is between me and reality. Some people say it feels like I am watching a movie. Other people say that it feels like I've kind of slipped out of reality, but you have an awareness that things are off. And that's one of the distinguishing factors between psychosis and depersonalization is you do feel very detached from reality and detached from yourself possibly as well, which would be depersonalization. But you are aware that something is off. It's technically called reality testing, is intact, okay? Whereas with psychosis, you wouldn't even know that something was wrong, okay? There's a full psychotic break and you wouldn't even know that anything was wrong. It would feel like the unreality was reality to you. And it's an important nuance to make, because a lot of people fear that they have psychosis. And so anyway, with that being said, get checked out by a licensed mental professional for sure if you're concerned about any of this stuff. But just from an educational perspective, that's important. So with that being said, depersonalization though, if you look, kind of, I do feel like this video did an okay job at that. If I can pause it. You're kind of experiencing your body from an outsider's perspective. You may look at your hands. I did that all the time, and your hands feel like they're not your own hands. You feel like your soul and body are separated. You may look in the mirror. You feel like you're looking at a stranger. You may look at people. They feel like they're strangers, even if you've known them for years. The best description is it kind of feels like you're watching yourself on a video camera. You don't really feel like integrated in your body. You feel like you're kind of just outside of yourself and a little bit to the left. And it's very terrifying, and I hate even talking about it, but this is This is what I've been doing for 8 years now. As long as people keep getting transformed, I'll keep doing this. I wasn't even intending to make this, like a vocation. It just kind of happened. I did a viral video or did a video that kind of went semi-viral back in 2017. Was literally just trying to pay it forward. I told myself if I could ever recover, I would help other people. And I did that video thinking that that was going to be it. I was headed on a completely different path as far as I'd written a book. I was starting to get invited to do itinerant speaking, and all of a sudden I was kind of at a crossroads and I chose this. But I'm so glad that I did, because so many people have been able to be helped, but still don't understand how I'm still doing this 8 years later. But I am, and people still getting their lives changed. So that's what matters. But anyway, so depersonalization, you feel kind of detached from your body. Derealization, you feel detached from the material world. And it's not just blurriness like this video shows. Again, just really kind of disappointed with, I just couldn't find the right filter for that, right? I think the blurry filter, but yeah, it's just not great. But with that being said, at least it captured depersonalization, and a lot of people were educated about that. So now let's go and turn to the comments, because there were so many descriptions of depersonalization realization that I think were so good. Okay, so I'm going to go and pause the video so I can change the little video here to the comment section. All right, so before I read these, I do just want to let you know, some of these may be triggering to hear. It's kind of an unfortunate thing, because in order to educate people about these symptoms, you do have to talk about the symptoms, but also it can be very stressful to hear about the symptoms. So it's kind of like a catch-22. But again, I cannot tell you how many people that have told me, hey, I had no idea what I was dealing with until I watched your videos. And I know for me in my recovery journey, hearing somebody describe what I was going through was so instrumental in my recovery. No, it didn't make me fully recovered, but I couldn't even begin to get on a path of recovery if I thought that I was just going crazy. I didn't even know what depersonalization realization was. So with that being said, I do spend a lot of time educating about the symptoms, not just DPDR, but other symptoms of trauma like memory issues, time feeling distorted, other symptoms of anxiety and panic and things like that, okay? So this person says, sometimes I wonder if I'm actually D&D and I'm living a weird alternative life that is also now my daily life. That one seemed to have a lot of people that responded to it. It's less blurry, which I agree. The video just didn't really capture it. It's less blurry and more like I'm viewing it on a camcorder, recording exactly 2 feet behind my own perspective. That is, I think, a really great description of depersonalization and derealization. I also want to say, not everybody experiences depersonalization that experiences derealization, and not everybody experiences derealization that experiences depersonalization. Some people only experience one symptom or the other. I know that for me, I experienced them both a lot, and then sometimes I would just experience one or the other. And then sometimes they were constant, sometimes they were off and on throughout my recovery journey. This person says, so I'm not alone in this. And do you see? That's the power of education. Sometimes the sky looks like the sky in the Truman Show, and no one gets what I'm trying to say. So if you've ever seen the Truman Show, he basically his whole life was like a movie set, and he didn't even realize it. It's such an odd sensation. I was looking in the mirror and just sort of felt like I was looking at someone that wasn't me, then looked down at my hands and felt like they didn't belong to me. So much comes with it, like a numbness. So there's a description of what happened with me all the time and what happens with my clients and so many people. Every time that I would look at my hands particularly, or look in the mirror and feel like my body wasn't my own body, or felt like I was a stranger, I would absolutely panic. I would go, remember particularly, I would check to see if I felt connected, and then I would go, ugh, and it was absolutely horrible. I don't get visual distortion. So that's the thing, and I don't want to get too deep down the rabbit hole. When people are experiencing depersonalization realization, it means that you're in the freeze response, also called the trauma response. And there are many symptoms of a trauma response, including, memory being thrown off. Whenever you enter to a trauma state, your memory kind of fragments. Think of it like a plate that kind of breaks into a lot of pieces. Not always, but sometimes it does. A lot of times it does. Memory can be thrown off. Oh yeah, I just said that. So memory being thrown off, time can feel distorted. So the part of your brain that's responsible for having an accurate perception of time starts to get shut down. There's a number of other symptoms, but most people that are experiencing the freeze response are also experiencing fight or flight symptoms. This would be generalized anxiety and panic. And that's where the visual issues happen, as far as like your pupils are dilated. So you're letting in more light. You're going to have possibly light sensitivity, visual sensory overload, eye floaters, static dots, colored dots, blurred vision, double vision. These are all technically sympathetic nervous system, whereas DPDR is actually the dorsal vagal branch of the parasympathetic nervous system, along with other trauma symptoms. But again, most people are experiencing fight or flight symptoms and freeze symptoms until you go into the deepest state of trauma / the freeze response, and that's where there's actually no sympathetic / anxiety symptoms at all. You actually feel calm, but you're completely numb. This is especially where people have trouble feeling the need to use the restroom, feeling physical pain, thirst, and hunger, and so many other sensations. I've got a few clients right now, actually, that they're starting to feel those things turn back on, which is so beautiful. But that's the deepest state of trauma. You can be experiencing DPDR, time feeling distorted memory issues, but there's no anxiety whatsoever. And so that's a rough state to get out of. But I help people with it all the time. Very doable. Just takes a lot more time usually. So this person says, so are we all collectively feeling this now? No. Statistically, 2% of people experience depersonalization realization on a continual basis. Half of all people will experience the symptoms at some point in their life. I think those statistics are wrong. I think that because most people can't describe the symptoms, I think that there's a lot more people that experience them. And I also think that there's a lot more people that experience them constantly than 2%, but that's at least a basic baseline understanding that shows that they're very common. These simulation videos don't even scratch the surface of how utterly terrifying, confusing, and maddening derealization is. You cannot accurately depict a soul being torn apart from the inside. So they're actually describing depersonalization. That's another thing, is the terms oftentimes get used very interchangeably. In fact, for the longest time, depersonalization included derealization in the up until the DSM-5, which is the most recent edition of the Diagnostical Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders that licensed mental professionals and doctors use. I don't use that as a coach. I can't diagnose, but I am aware of what's in there. And in the DSM-5, which is the latest edition of this, it's kind of like the Bible of psychiatry. They did separate the terms depersonalization and derealization. I think that's really important because in my own experience, whenever I went through the symptoms, as well as helping people for the last 8 years, I'll tell you, a lot of people only experience derealization. A lot of people only experience depersonalization. And so it's very, very important to have them separated. This and not being able to remember anything you did the day prior. Because remember, if you're experiencing depersonalization realization, you are in a trauma state. Trauma is not an event. It is a state of overwhelming stress in the nervous system. You can get there 2 ways. Number one, what's called a major trauma. It's like a lightning strike. You might have even had a calm history before this, but there's a singular situation that overwhelms your nervous system. The second way to reach a trauma state is something called complex trauma. And this is primarily what my clients are experiencing. You've had a very painful history. You've had repeated significant stress and adversity over a long period of time. And it's kind of like filling up a cup with terrible apple coffee that doesn't taste good. Okay. No, but this is like your body. And over time, especially if you're in a very stressful environment, okay, around very dysregulated people, or especially abusive people, bullying, this can happen. There's a bunch of different scenarios, but the stress builds up, and then there's some sort of situation that happens. For some people, it's a drug experience. For some people, it's getting let go of their job. For some people, it's not even connected to anything specific, because it didn't really take much to get you to an 11 whenever you're walking around at a 9 or a 10. Remember, trauma happens at that 11, okay, the overwhelm point. And because you feel too overwhelmed to fight or flee, your brain thinks that you're being eaten by a lion. And that's actually why depersonalization realization happened, is to help mitigate the pain of being eaten by a lion. There's a shutdown of what Bessel van der Kolk calls the Mohawk of self-awareness, which Bessel van der Kolk wrote, The Body Keeps a Score book. The Mohawk of self-awareness is a series of brain structures that are responsible for you feeling connected to your body as well as yourself and the material world. And it's believed that it's kind of like nature's last gift, right? If you're going to be eaten by the lion, you might as well not feel it. And I wish that I would have known that whenever I was going through this. But anyway, with that being said, you're experiencing a lot of different symptoms most of the time, not just DPDR. And memory issues are kind of like DPDR's second cousin, because also part of a trauma state is that your memory will fragment. You go from registering memory as explicit narrative-based memory, where if you recall an event, you can have a very clear, cohesive, beginning, middle, and end, to implicit procedural memory, which is where you'll have bits and pieces that you remember or maybe have gaps in memory. Okay, for me, it's more like being ultra aware that my soul is stuck in a weak, fragile body that I can somehow pilot, like my body isn't me. That is probably one of the best descriptions that I've ever heard of depersonalization. Wow. That is so good. I'm going to read that again. For me, it's more like being ultra aware that my soul is stuck in a weak, fragile body that I can somehow pilot, like my body isn't me. Sophia says, I'm not the only one, which is, again, awesome that this was able to spread so much awareness. And again, I wish I could. I didn't think it was going to go viral. That's how it always works. I thought it would, you never know, actually. Maybe it gets 100 views. And it wasn't about that. It was literally just to spread awareness, but you just never know. And I feel like I should have taken more time for the derealization part, but I can always do another video on it. That's so difficult to show the real derealization feeling. Exactly. Yes, I definitely agree with that. Angie says, it feels like a really boring TV show that's a little too loud and too quiet at the same time. Let me think about that for a second. It's too loud and too quiet at the same time. Ooh, that's very interesting. I've lost interest in it, but can't find the remote to turn the channel or turn it off, so I'm stuck watching it forever, some scenes repeating over and over. That's a very good description right there of derealization. To be honest, this doesn't even compare to the life doesn't feel real feeling. It's too difficult to explain to people. Agreed. Yeah, it's so hard. I was stuck in this mode for like 1 to 2 months, and I hated it. Absolutely. I feel like an NPC. Yep, so that's like non-player character. Often it feels like there's a glass wall or a fog between me and everyone else. I'm not real. No one else is real. I'm just stuck in an unreal body piloting around a simulation. The next, do I even wake up in the same reality every day? This person says, oh, so there's a word for it. And I commented yes, because I'm so excited that they were able to get some education from this. This person says, this is going to sound weird, but mine feels the extreme opposite. Like everything seems extremely overly vibrant and exaggerated. Yeah, so especially with derealization, it's so subjective. That's much more difficult to describe than depersonalization. But yeah, absolutely, things can feel very heightened, and that's one way of explaining it. Feels like I'm spectating myself. This person says, I've always explained it as being stuck in a TV. There's a TV that's stuck playing static. I know that makes no sense, but that's how it feels. Absolutely. Or like you're looking at your hands through a set of binoculars. That's a really good description. I randomly felt this one time walking through Walmart. To me, it was a feeling like I was in the Truman Show. That's the second Truman Show description. Like everything was a movie set and I was just playing a character or something hard to explain. This person says, it feels like a video game. Are you able to see this? Okay, I need to look and make sure that you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. Yes, absolutely. But does anyone actually feel like they are alive and living? Me, except instead of blurry, I feel like I'm catty corner inside of my own body. Ooh, that's a good description of it as well. It's horrible. It's ruining my life. Absolutely. It was the most excruciatingly painful thing that I went through. And again, I wasn't just experiencing depersonalization, realization. I know I talk about those symptoms a lot, but I was also going through panic attacks and I was going through severe anxiety. And technically, I spent over 15 years of generalized anxiety. Most of my clients have severe anxiety as well. A lot of them have panic attacks, existential obsession, rumination, health anxiety, insomnia, you name it. they're experiencing so many different symptoms. It's very rare that somebody is just experiencing depersonalization realization with no other symptoms, although that does happen too. But just to clarify that. In fact, I often tell, my clients and even some other coach friends, I'm like, man, sometimes I wish that I was just an anxiety coach. Like I am an anxiety coach. I help people with anxiety, but I definitely specialize in, these symptoms. And, you know, these symptoms happen at the point of overwhelm in the nervous system. And they're just, it's not that anxiety is not severe. Okay. But once you reach that point of overwhelming stress in the nervous system, it's just a completely different universe as far as symptoms and the impact that it has on your life. And the people that I work with, at least initially until they can really learn how to self regulate, like I have to carry them on my back. It's a lot of work, which I'm not complaining about that at all. But it's like whenever that's most of your clients, like at this point, I have a couple hundred people across all my programs, and pretty much all of them, except for I'm starting to get more people just experiencing anxiety, which is great. But whenever that's most of the people that you work with, like it's heavy. It's definitely heavy, and so I have to have a lot of boundaries, lots of self care. But it also is, in my opinion, even more significant than just helping people with anxiety, because the contrast whenever you're helping somebody with these symptoms is so much more significant, because it's, again, not minimizing anxiety, but it's not that they're just going from a generally anxious state to getting their life back. They're going from complete rock bottom and overwhelm most of the time to getting their life back. And there's something called post-traumatic growth, which is so beautiful, where they literally walk away stronger. And just, that's honestly just a rabbit trail real quick. That's what keeps me doing this. I've had to learn so many different skills to do this over, the last 8 years, managing a team and content creation and leadership and, time management and, so many other things. Finances, I've got to manage that appropriately. I could do a lot of other stuff, but every time that I want to walk away, there's just another breakthrough. Like, and it's literally oxygen. It's oxygen in my veins. And so, in fact, I just got an email this morning. Somebody that I worked with like 5 years ago was like, hey, I'm fully recovered. I'd love to do a recovery interview. And I think we're going to jump on a call this week. And people in my program are just beating this left and right. So, like I often have to remind myself, those hands are mine. Like I'm piloting this meat suit and I'm an inattentive driver at best. This is absolutely amazing, the descriptions that these people are giving. That is like I often have to remind myself, those hands are mine. Like and they put I'm with little asterisks, piloting this meat suit, and I'm an inattentive, I don't know if I can say that. I'm an inattentive driver at best. That one's getting hard. Wow. That's exactly what I felt like whenever I was going through this. Wow. For me, it just feels like I'm watching myself through a movie. I've been feeling like this for years. Anyone know how to fix it? And I sent them a direct message, with my 5 Shifts Masterclass, which, by the way, I know we're probably 22 minutes into the video and nobody's probably watching at this point. I need to mention this a lot sooner, but I've created a 5 Shifts Masterclass, and it's actually going to help you whether you decide to apply and work with me or not. I invested, I think, almost 6 months into this. I was working so many hours a day to make sure that it actually helped you. It's going to show you the 5 shifts that you need to make to truly get to the root of depersonalization realization, but not just that, anxiety, panic as well. There's a link in the description, as well as the first pinned comment. Okay, so check that out. And there's an application to apply to work with me and my team, my Rise program, where people are getting their life back every single day and beating these symptoms. So be happy to take a look at your situation. Can't work with everybody. You do need to be highly committed. Okay, not everybody's ready. I've accepted that. But if this is resonating with you, I would love to take a look at your situation. Okay. But I always tell people, I don't care who you work with, right? Human to human, I want you to feel better. So I hope that through this channel, you're getting the education that you need, so that regardless of who you work with to recover, that you know what needs to happen. Okay. Especially as it relates to the body. So important. You can't skip that, or you can, but you're going to pay for it later. Going on 5 months pure dissociation. Therapist says there's no way to fix it. I'm so tired. Okay, so I've got a therapist who's going through our program right now, and she's doing great, by the way. She was dealing with severe DPDR, other symptoms as well, anxiety. I've worked with a lot of therapists over the years who were going through symptoms themselves. You know, they have been some of my favorite clients that I've gotten to work with. Truly passionate, so excited to learn things. And you would assume that whenever somebody has an advanced mental health degree or medical degree, that they would be educated on all things, mental health. But unfortunately, there's a gap in understanding. And it's actually a much bigger issue than just DPDR. There's a gap in understanding of trauma. Okay. Most licensed mental health professionals, and this is largely in part because of the DSM, 4 and 5, or really all the editions so far, kind of make trauma an event, but not just an event, a very, very particular list of events: loss of a loved one, car accident, going off to war. And because of that, whenever somebody's experiencing depersonalization, realization, a lot of times their approach is an antiquated approach that doesn't really get to the root of the symptoms, particularly doesn't deal with the things happening in the body. And so if you show up experiencing depersonalization, realization to a therapist, and you've never been in a car accident or recently lost a loved one or gone off to war or, natural disaster, a lot of times they just don't really know how to address it. Although there are a lot of them that do, which is great. And, obviously I'm biased because the only people that work with me are people that obviously didn't get help from a therapist, but there are so many amazing therapists out there who do specialize in trauma, understand the somatic side of things, understand the importance of co-regulation. There's a trauma-informed movement that's happening, but unfortunately, there's just not enough education about trauma. And DPDR are trauma coping mechanisms, okay? And so the way that we get depersonalization, realization to shut off is indirectly. We directly do things that show your body and nervous system that you're safe, and that will indirectly get depersonalization, realization to shut off. Okay. And so to heal trauma is to get the body out of fight, flight, freeze response. Okay. And if you don't have an understanding of how to do that, or even how trauma affects the body, it's just very difficult, okay, for people to get the help that they need, unfortunately. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. 26-minute video. Comment below if you're still watching. I'm gonna do something special for you. I don't know what it is yet, but that's a long video. I didn't even mean for it to be this long, but I'm just kind of reading the comments. Cool. Please help. Now it's been 4 years. So sorry to hear about that. I can't process it. When I touch something, I can't feel it. This is literally what sends me into a panic attack. It's so hard to explain to people how I feel before it happens. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is I was traumatized by the trauma symptoms, right? My body was a war zone and had been for years. I never was in my body, suppressed my emotions, didn't have any boundaries. My body had so much tension, adrenaline, emotion, fatigue. I lived up here all day. But once the symptoms of traumatic stress happened, they were so terrifying and I didn't know what they were that they overwhelmed me. And that became one of the layers that kept me stuck, was fearing the symptoms. So that's why education is so important. I do this with every single client. It's literally the first thing that we do is I give them several hours of training on how their nervous system works in various states of survival. That's to do two things: detach fear and shame from symptoms. Last one. Okay, then we'll be done. And if you guys enjoy this, click the like button, comment something below. I am baffled at how accurate these descriptions are. So, hopefully you guys are getting some value out of this. And if so, I can keep reading. There's over 500 comments, and we'll just keep going to spread some education. Sometimes it feels like I'm watching a movie and what I'm doing isn't what I decided, but I have to just sit there and watch. Wow. People are so creative. That is such a good description. So anyway, with that being said, I'll go ahead and end the video. I hope that this has helped you, and I hope you have a good day. We'll do more like this, and that's it. If you're dealing with DPDR, just know that there is hope for you, okay? I have been doing this 8 years, worked with thousands of people, and I wouldn't still keep doing this unless people are getting their life back. I have beat this. So many people beat this, and I believe that there is hope for you, but you have to stop focusing on the symptoms. The symptoms are not the problem. And again, if you want to know what you really need to be focusing on, watch the 5 Shifts Masterclass. It's going to equip you with the knowledge. Watch my videos. Almost every video, I'll give you a basic understanding of what it takes to recover. And there's a lot of things that we need to deal with in the body, especially. Your body is a war zone and your life is a war zone, and we need to fix that. And that will indirectly get not just DPDR to shut off, but anxiety, panic, and all these other symptoms as well of a dysregulated nervous system. Okay, that is it. And I'm going to go ahead and end the video. It's been the longest video ever at this point. So